All right. That's 3 minutes in. Don't want to take up anybody's time unnecessarily. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you being here. All right, so you are obviously here for the Housing Trust Fund Technical Assistance webinar. My name is Randy Davis. I'm the brand new housing analyst for economic development with El Paso County. I've been here a whopping 3 months now, I believe. Just getting my feet wet in the position, and here we go with my first presentation. So I'm glad you're all here to witness this. Hopefully you will be good.
Randy, the screen that you're showing is the presentation mode, so we can see 2 slides at once with the next slide. I don't know if it's on the wrong screen or just wanted to highlight that for you.
I didn't know I could do that. Thank you. Now I gotta figure out how I can undo that. Now you can't see. Okay. I have no idea how to undo it. Well, there we go. My first goof of the presentation. Yep. I have no idea how to do it the other way.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'm sure. Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody. Anyway.
It's good.
So as I was saying, that was my little intro there. I'm also the staff person for El Paso County Housing Authority. Also on the line is Crystal Latier, our executive director here at Economic Development, and the other Housing Authority staff person. She said she is going to mute herself unless I need her for something because, being new to this. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Crystal's going to help monitor that as well. But here we go. Our agenda today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Housing Trust Fund itself. Go over the application. I have a little application to take a look at here, so we'll go over it together, give you some tips and tricks on how to fill out that thing, and then, of course, Q&A. Anytime you have a question, go ahead and throw that into chat as well. So to get started, a little bit about the Housing Trust Fund just in general. It's administered by the El Paso County Housing Authority. We have a non-traditional housing authority around here. We don't own or manage any housing for this housing authority, so very non-traditional. Instead, we're more like a housing finance authority, so we're able to fund projects in our community. And the goal of the Housing Authority is to promote suitable living environments for all persons and families. And we'll talk more about how they do that with the Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund itself is a revolving loan fund. We don't get money for that every year, just like a lot of the other funding sources that are out there. So we don't get money, no federal funding, no taxpayer requests that go out every year. We have to deal with what we have. So in that respect, we cannot give out money as grants or forgivable loans. It has to be revolving. It has to be paid back at some time or at some point. I just want to point out that the trust fund did receive $2 million last year out of the general fund for El Paso County. That was a one-time thing, and we don't expect it to happen again. So that money has to be revolving, has to be paid back. Our application cycle, we have 2 applications per year. So we take those things on November 1st and May 1st. So of course you're here to hear about the May 1st application. And it is a competitive process because there's only so much money, only so many things we can do with it. So it is very competitive. Housing Trust Fund, we say the fund part, the F is for flexibility. So we do flexible project types. We can focus on creating and maintaining affordable multifamily rental units. That's what the Housing Authority is looking to do these days. Other options, though, are initial homeownership, homelessness, special needs, housing rehab, those kind of things. But our Housing Authority tends to shy away from those from those things because they can get money from CDBG funding, and that's an annual thing. We get money for that every year. So we would like to focus CDBG funds on those things and stick to maintaining affordable multi-family rental units or creating them as well. Flexible also stands for flexible usage. So typically, we're considered gap financing. We come in with funding that can be used anywhere. We don't define how that money has to be used. It could be for construction costs. It could be for maintaining certain funds throughout the construction process. It can be for anything. It's very flexible. The F can also stand for flexible funding terms. So this fund typically is 200,000 to 500,000. That's how much money there is per project. It could be less, it could be a little bit more, just depends on what you're looking for. So definitely make the ask. The housing authority is pretty open on what their requirements are in that area. Interest rates typically between 2 and 3%, but that's also flexible as well. See what your project looks like and what your funding looks like and see how you can pay that money back. And then amortized repayment is preferred. So it is preferred that you set out maybe an 18-year repayment plan or a 30-year repayment plan. Also, we'd like you to think about when you can start paying that money back. So if it's you have to wait until the place is open and you're collecting rents, and then you can start repaying it. So think about those things when you think about how your funding will be paid back. So the El Paso County Housing Authority focuses on certain things in these applications. So the things they are looking for is a project location. They want to know where in the county you are putting your project. Of course, they would like to focus on areas outside of the city of Colorado Springs, but there are areas within the city as well that they'll put funding to. They also want to see a timeline. So they do not like to give commitments more than a year out. So if you're looking to apply this May and you don't think you're going to have a financial closing until the end of 2024, then they're not going to look very seriously at that project. They want something they can commit to closer. So if you're applying for May and you're thinking your financial closing will be in December, then that's what they're looking for at this point. And if you are looking for something, maybe you're looking to start in 2024, and we wouldn't consider the application as seriously, but maybe we could provide a letter of support so that if you're out there looking for other funding, you have our support in that area. It's not a commitment. We haven't tied up money for your project at that point, but it's a letter of support. So it's something. We're also looking at your target incomes. If you're looking to help the lower income families, of course, we like to see that. If you're looking to help veterans, we're hoping to see that as well. Unit counts and mix. So if you're planning for those 3-bedroom units, those are hard to get in our community for low income families. We like to see those things as well. Completed financial stack. So they want to see that you've thought about how you're going to get financing for your project. We have no problem coming in first with El Paso County Housing Trust Fund money, but we want to know where the rest of the money is going to come from as well. They want to see the repayment. So we'll look at the application here in a second. It states right on there exactly how you are going to repay this housing trust fund. They want to know if there's any zoning issues. So if you're talking to the owner of the property, you don't own the property yet, you're talking to the owner, and there's zoning issues. We want to know that as well because the housing authority would like to put money in again within the next year. And if your zoning issues take you out 3 years, then that's going to be a problem. We also want to know the benefits beyond housing. So, are there any wraparound services that you're looking at doing? Are there other things being provided at that space that would interest our housing authority? And then, of course, that goes along with any partnerships or collaborations. Are you working with any nonprofits? Have you talked to anybody about what you're doing so that they can join in? Do we know who's going to be a part of that project? our Housing Trust Fund application timeline. So this is for the May cycle. Of course, applications are due to me by May 1st. We say close of business sometime on May 1st. May 10th, the Housing Authority will be having a meeting, and at that point, they're going to do an initial review of the applications, just a brief glance over. Maybe we got 10 applications on May 1st. They're going to take a look at all 10 of those. Mid-May, they're going to decide what presentations they want to take a look at. So at that point, they'll say, we got 10 applications. We only want to hear from 5 of them for this cycle. And then I'll send out the requests for those people to come to our next meeting. June 6th will be when presentations are due to me so that I can prepare the packets for the Housing Authority. June 14th will be that meeting so that you will know what time frame you're supposed to be presenting. We'll already have your materials. The 14th is when presentations will be heard. And then sometime in July is when commitment letters will go out. So they'll hear all 5 of those, just as an example, presentations, and then they'll decide if they're going to fund any of them. And then those organizations will receive their commitment letters. Other parts of the timeline there, sometime before closing documents are prepared by the attorneys, QTAC Rock, and signed by the Housing Authority and the board chair. So staff, myself, will be on the closing calls so that we know when that is going to happen. We will deliver the check to the title company at closing. So that's something I haven't gotten to do yet, but I will be going to closing with a couple cashier's checks here in the near future. So sounds like fun. Commitment letters, those organizations that do receive a commitment letter from the Housing Authority, that commitment letter details the project. So it will say the unit count and the mix of units. So how many 2 bedrooms, how many 3 bedrooms, there's 100 units overall, and the AMI levels that you're hoping to hit. It will set out the loan terms, so the interest rate, the amortization, when you start paying back, how long it's going to take you to pay back, all of that will be in that letter, and the conditions of participation. So we have a nice little list here of the different conditions that could be part of that participation letter. So we give you a couple weeks to read through all of that and decide if you can meet all of the conditions that are listed on that letter. And then you have to respond back if you accept that or not. So email is fine. We don't request a fancy letter on letterhead or anything like that. Just let us know if you accept those conditions. Typically, those letters expire within 12 months. We don't want to give commitments out again for 2 years because that ties up the money that could be used for another project. And let's say there are any changes that happens during, this phase of getting the project set up. Like, as an example, recently one of the projects decided that they wanted more 3-bedroom units versus 1-bedroom units. So they changed around the layout a little bit, changed the project, it changed all the details up here about the project, and they had to go back to the Housing Authority for those changes. It's not a bad thing. We're not saying that it would be denied or anything like that. It's just that changes to those commitment letters have to be approved. So the question you should be asking yourself is, are you ready to apply? So some things to be looking at if you have plans to obtain site control, you could be ready to apply for this. Um, environmental studies, market studies, preliminary development plans. We want to see that you've got some stuff in place, that you're not just thinking about this short term, but you're thinking long term. You've gotten started on the project. And some kind of pro forma. You'll see here in the application in just a second that we really want to see that you've got this information nailed down. We want to see some numbers in that. So if you've got that ready, you could be ready to apply. And if applicable, if you've already applied to other funding sources, we would love to see those letters as well. So a little bit about the application. Here's the link right here. Crystal said she would try to put the link to that in the chat as well, so you can go look at that too. I'm going to take a look here, I created my own dummy application last night so we could play with some numbers as we're looking at the application. You will see it looks very familiar. We have based our application off of the ones that you'll see for LIHTC and PEB and other areas across the city and across the state. So very, very familiar. I did not put this application together and I have not tried to play with it. I've heard there's some bugs in it still. Let me know if you see any bugs. I'll try to help fix those things if I can, but I haven't tried any of that yet. So the first tab on that application is the instructions, and they are laid out based on tabs. So here we have all the instructions for tab 2, tab 3, tab 4, tab 5. So go ahead and read through those as needed. The first one you fill in information on is the information tab. And you can see here it says, please fill in only the yellow cells. So as you're filling this thing out, more cells will turn yellow for you, so you can fill in more information. You can see on this dummy application that we're not asking for PAB funds. If we were to change our mind, it's not letting me change my mind. If I were to click yes there, it's supposed to show more yellow cells here. So I would say that's probably a computer problem and not an application problem because it worked just fine last night. Anyway, first you got information about the project. The more information you can fill in here, the better. Obviously, if you don't know something, you can leave it blank, but I have to tell you that this information up here follows through to the other tabs as well. So you might want to fill in just as much as you can. Down here is giving the summary of your project. So telling us what kind of project you're doing and who you're serving and how you're helping, a little bit about how you're getting through the project and who's going to be involved in it. And then at the very bottom, we have a list of things that you can attach to your application, things that you can send along with the application if you have them ready. The more information you can send, obviously, the better. The next tab, we have the development budget. Here, like I said, this information populates on its own. So the gray cells, you're not expected to put information in. It's just the yellow ones. So if we were to add, like there were existing structures on that property, it would auto-populate and those numbers would carry on to other tabs as well. Um, Nothing new here. If you need to add things, under professional fees, you've got more information to add. There's other categories that you can put your own information in. If you say have 3 appraisals, you can add those things together and throw it under one line item if you need to. However, you got to do that to set up your fees there. The next tab, um, income and expenses. You can see again, the gray tabs fill themselves out. Try to tell us as much as you can. There we go. Under financing, here's how you're financing your project. So again, we want to see as much information as possible. So here we're getting a conventional loan. We don't know the lender just yet, so TBD is just fine. When you fill out this section here, of course, Housing Authority Trust Fund, um, what kind of loan, how much you're asking for, what the interest rate's going to be, how many years, all of that populated from that other tab. So again, try to fill in as much information as possible. And it tells us what our annual payment is going to be. The Housing Authority is going to look really hard at that section, just so you're aware. Here we have the pro forma, so this goes out 15 years. What's the first 15 years going to look like? Most of this information came from those other tabs, so you can see it is grayed out. You can add in other payments, though, if you're leasing some space in the building, for example. That could be information that you put in here as well. And then this tab populates on its own as well, so it gets that information from that financing tab. We just need you to tell us where you're at in the process. So if you're looking to get that loan, this was the loan amount. Where are you in the process? So you're planning to apply for it. Here's the housing authority money. Where are you in that process? And again, that drop down should work for you. I don't know why it's not working for me right now, but you could say you did apply because you've sent in your application. And then we've got another tab here for notes. I have seen other applications that have, several more tabs on there. So if you have even more information that you want to share, go right ahead and add your own tabs on there to share that information as well. That is perfectly fine. So there we have our application and some tips and tricks on that application. Give as much information as possible, any documentation you have, any studies that you have done, anything. We want to see pictures of the property. We want to see layouts where you're putting the buildings. Anything you've got could be helpful for your application. PowerPoints are not required, but they are very helpful. If you're asked to do a presentation to the Housing Authority, PowerPoints would be I don't want to say required, but they can be helpful at that point, but you can send them earlier as well. Have your financial stack sorted out as best you can. Again, they want to see that you've at least thought out where you're going to get the funding from, if not already applied or put together some general numbers for that. And then, of course, ask questions if you have them. No stupid questions, right? Ask any questions that you have. Let us know what your problems are with that application so I can try and fix them. Or if you just have some general questions about projects, we love to hear that too. I love to talk about projects. So, do we have any questions?
We didn't have any questions in the chat currently, but this is a great time to ask any general questions about the process. If you had, project-specific questions, I would encourage you to hold those and reach out to Randy, because the webinar is really an opportunity to provide a broad overview, but then we also do applicant meetings after this webinar. So if you have a project-specific question, a follow-up one-on-one applicant meeting with Randy would be a fantastic approach, but happy to take some general questions right now. I'm not seeing any in the chat.
Perfect.
I had a question about PAB. Are you accepting applications for PAB CAP on May 1st?
Yes. Okay.
I had heard that was a year-round thing.
It is, yep. So the private activity bonds, and I can put a link in our chat regarding our private activity bond allocation, but the private activity bond application is accepted on a rolling basis. So it's not the same as the HTF, where we only accept it twice a year, but it does utilize the same form. So that is the one connection.
Great, thank you.
I was taking notes on that one too, just so you know. Lee, hi. Haven't seen you in forever.
Hey, Randy, how are you? I'm actually typing, and I think instead of trying to sound lucid in a message, I'll just ask. So good to see you too, and good to see you, Alyssa, and others. So I can see and appreciate that you guys are tightening up the time frame and the sequence between application and when the commitment and when you would like to have a project closed. As we all know, we all deal with this, that there's overlap at times between everyone wants everyone else's commitment to be first. And so I don't know if I've got a specific question, but just to acknowledge that there may be times where there's some tension in the system between, if we've got a tax credit application in, it's certainly much more advantageous to CHAFA to see that we've got this commitment early, but you don't want to commit too early for fear of it taking 2 years to close. And I can appreciate both sides. I think if nothing else, I just wanted to articulate that. And, you know, I imagine just like with most projects, we'll have to manage that as we go along.
And
Yeah, that's a great point, Lee. And there have been times when we've written letters of support for those CHAF applications that say, you know, we're very supportive of the project. It's in line with our strategic plan. The project has announced their intent to apply to us for HTF. And so that can be a way that we can provide some level of support if that full-on commitment letter isn't able to happen, you know, on that timeline. Something else to keep in mind, there was a time, and like as you mentioned, they weren't putting kind of expirations on their commitments, and so you can imagine how that turned into a nightmare. But the commitments typically are no longer than a year. But as we all know in the development world, things change, right? And so perhaps we're all working towards that, and the financial closing gets pushed out to 2 months or something. There's an opportunity to ask for an extension on that, and so that is another opportunity to keep in mind. There's slight flexibility there too, but most definitely understand kind of that qualm and that tension, and how do we show local support and political will to ensure that we're leveraging all of those other state and federal resources like we can. So thank you for noting that for us.
Lee,
You guys have always been very supportive in managing these projects and problems and getting solutions done. So I definitely appreciate that. It seems like we have to be sharper and sharper, which is a good thing to make sure that the timing all aligns and we get support lined up and the method by which we can to get these projects done. So, and I expect that to continue. You guys have been great.
Thank you, Lee. Anybody else?
Randy, you had a very successful first webinar. Thank you. That was great information, great slide deck. We've shared the slide deck, our FAQs, website links in the chat. Know that the recording as well as the slide deck will be permanently posted on our website in the coming days. So all of that will live there. So if you have, you know, maybe other colleagues or friends that you were hoping to share some information with, that will be there. Kind of perpetuity. So we'll have some additional information up on the website as well. But fantastic job, Randy.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. Hope you have a fabulous afternoon. Good seeing you all.
Nice to meet you, Randy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Randy. Bye.
Of course. Bye.